This must be Ruscin.
This is Ruscin, yes, sir.
I'm doing well, Ruscin, and nice to talk to you. I've never known a Ruscin.
It's not a pleasure. It's one of those things you kind of put on your resume, and you don't necessarily you just kind of go, well, it is what it is.
And that was Zach, buddy. So he's taking shots at me, which is about normal for
a Tuesday.
For what happens around here. All right.
You're the bad boy. You're the bad boys, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. It's starting to get some conversation today. Besides the Pittman story, the Felipe Franks coming back to Gainesville story, and what is kind of the opinion of the Gator fans as Felipe comes back to the swamp on Saturday?
I think they all fear what he could do. They respect him. And Felipe, although he was somewhat controversial in his days there, he did some good things. He had a lot of heart and soul invested in this team and his former teammates. I think for the most part, Gator fans respect him. All of his coaches and his players in Florida have a high regard. They've spoken about him all week. We just had an interview with Brett Hagee, one of his roommates. So I think it's interesting. And, of course, Dan Mullen knows, as he said in his presser, that Felipe is coming here with bad intentions. My words, not his. And that he knows Felipe is a competitor, and he knows Felipe would like nothing better than to beat his team. And it's a friendly rivalry competition, but respectful. And I think, as they all have said this week, they all root for Felipe, except for this Saturday.
This offense for Florida, I want to talk to you about the guy that replaced Felipe Franks, Kyle Trask. This offense is rolling, and they're in a 5-game stretch. They've scored more points than they have in any SEC stretch in the last decade. Kyle Trask is one of those guys that just sort of came out of nowhere, but has grasped this Dan Mullen offense. I'm curious, is it Kyle Trask? Is it Dan Mullen? Is it a combination of the two? Who gets credit for sort of this explosion on the Florida offense?
I would say both, because let's be honest, when you get caught without a quarterback, you're Georgia and you're in trouble. And one of the things they've done in Florida with not just Dan Mullen, his offensive coordinator, his former quarterback, by the way, Brian Johnson, I thought was ingenious. And a few people understand this. I was telling my buddy Terry Bradshaw that I do a podcast every week about this. And I was telling Urban Meyer, who's also a podcast, they never heard of this before. I said, well, I thought it was unusual. Brian Johnson's idea is he gives 3 quarterbacks, his first 3 quarterbacks, equal reps in practice with the ones. I've never heard of that. And so last year when Felipe went down, that awful scene in Lexington, and Trask, who was a good friend of his, and was out there right off the bat basically holding his hand. For Trask to be ready for a guy who's been in mothballs since he was in the 9th grade in high school, this is a phenomenal story, in my opinion, of next man up. He is the personification of next man up. And then to come into a game, he never started a game since he was in the 9th grade. He spent 3 years of riding the pine, as they used to call it, in Florida. He comes in cold and immediately transforms his team. And with his arm, and even ran for a touchdown, they pulled out the game. They were 10 points behind, maybe more, maybe it was 11, I forget, against Kentucky. He pulled it out, turned it around, and the rest, they say, is history. I think he's like 14-3 as a starter. He is getting better all the time, and he was ready because the coaches got him ready, and he also mentally was ready. And he's a guy that I think is really one of the best stories in college football right now.
You mentioned Brian Johnson. He is I guess he was recruited by Urban Meyer at Utah, played for Kyle Whittingham, was the author of that 37-0 beatdown of Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, and then winds up with Dan Mullen. Those two guys are very, very like-minded offensively, correct?
Yes, they are. And just so you know, that Dan Mullen he was just a quarterback coach. He was a GA at Notre Dame. And when I wrote Urban's book, our first book, Urban's Way, we talked a lot about the early days with Dan Mullen. And Mullen was basically, his job was to come set the cones for Urban at Notre Dame. and we were talking about his spicy personality. And he says sometimes you just wanted to tell him to shut up and set the cones, you know. And this person, but I got to hear that in action because part of the deal when I did the book was I got to monitor the headsets during the game, which was really cool. And I heard the back and forth between Meyer and Mullen. And Mullen would get right in his face, truth to power. So, you know, he said, I remember one game against FSU, was a flood going on, and everyone wanted to keep running the ball, and Dan kept saying, we should run our offense. Let's run our offense, run our offense. So he had to throw the ball in the Munson. He threw the ball. And he really sort of took it to Urban. And they did. They played great. And so he was not afraid to voice his opinion. And that's what you need. You need someone who's not a yes man to tell you what he really thinks. And that's why it worked between Mullen and Meyer. And by the way, when Mullen left, the offense was never the same.
I'm talking with Buddy Martin here on Ruscin and Zach as we preview Arkansas and Florida. Buddy, what have you thought of Florida's defense this year?
Well, I'm confused because I'm a big Todd Grantham man. I love, as a former high school quarterback, okay, emphasizing high school, emphasizing a long time ago, I can tell you I would hate to go against a guy who wants to attack me as quarterback. And that's what he does. He attacks the quarterback, and his quote-unquote philosophy is to make that quarterback as miserable as possible. He sends blitzes from I say he would send a blitz from the peanut stand if he could. I mean, you never know who's coming, when they're coming, and I love his attacks. Now, sometimes they get burned, and they've had a few issues recently, certainly the first three games. They couldn't stop people on third and fourth down. They've shored that up, stuck their fingers in the dike, and against Missouri, who was a pretty good team when they beat Kentucky, by the way. People laugh at it. But they finally slowed it down, and Missouri was only 3 for 15 on fourth down. But he's got a few issues. His front seven's playing much better. They got both their defensive linemen back now. They're really good ones. And their linebackers are getting better every game. They got really great athletes, but the back end has been a mess sometimes. And there were a couple of times in the Georgia game where Georgia got people, open, deep, and the quarterbacks for Georgia couldn't hit them. And I said, you know what? Felipe's arm, he can get the ball there. And that could be dangerous. So the defense is, let's say, a work in progress.
I want to ask you about two guys. Dan Mullen hinted yesterday that Kyle Pitts might not be available, and to me that's a huge loss because this guy, there isn't anybody in the country that can cover this guy one-on-one. And then Kadarius Toney strikes me as a Percy Harvin type. Am I misreading that?
Well, no, you're not misreading. I say there's similarities, but Percy Harvin really could not be stopped. I think Georgia did a pretty good job on Kadarius last week. I'm a big Kadarius fan. If for no other reason than he's from 8 Mile, Alabama. I love that. I think Pitts is a freak. He is everything we heard. We kept hearing stories about him in practice. We don't get to see practice. And Tony is not only 6'6", almost 6'7", with fantastic, huge hands, but can leap and also, as a competitor, can block, by the way. Is very athletic, can run routes like a wide receiver. So he's been amazing. There's a few other guys. I think Tony's there. He's a threat. They know he can go deep on you. He can burn you. He can make great plays. He went back to his old self against Georgia. He started going east and west too much. He's got to go north, and just do his jukes, whatever. But he's an athlete. He's strong, by the way. He's got good hands, and he's got a lot of wiggle in him. But there's nothing like Pitts. Pitts is a freak. And by the way, the secret to the success of this team, and I've been saying for almost a year, Chris Storing and I talk about it a lot. He does the show with me a lot. And they've got athletes. They've got players like Trevon Grimes, Justin Shorter. These are guys that people have never heard of. A lot of them. And they got freshmen coming up, Whittemore, guys like that. They've got players at the wide receiver position. There's a reason there are 4 receivers in the NFL from last year's team. His name was Billy Gonzalez. He's as good at offense. He's as good a wide receiver coach as in the business. He's developing talent, and right now, by the way, he's got some weapons. And he's got a quarterback who can get the ball to him.
Now, you're talking about Pitts. For those who haven't had a chance to sort of watch him, he strikes me as kind of a hybrid between Jimmy Graham in his prime and Travis Kelce today.
Yeah, that would be pretty accurate. Yeah, I think so, yes. He's a first-round draft choice, that's for sure.
No question.
You'll see him, but what a vicious hit he took. Oh, my word.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it or not, but I mean, that was vicious.
Yeah, I was watching when that happened, buddy, and it's just so unusual to see hits like that in today's college football. That used to be no big deal, but now that was something.
I'm telling you, I'm surprised they got up, both of them, and I don't know how long Pitts will be out. They haven't told us. He won't play this week, and so that's out.
No.
But they other players, but when you have a weapon, you guys know football. It's just him being there. It already dictates you've got to put 2 men on it. So when you go out in your offense right off the bat, he's there, and you've got to respect him. And so somebody's going to be open, and that's what happened. These other receivers are getting open because of Kyle Pitts and because of Kadarius Toney. So that's the philosophy. And again, a quarterback who gets the ball to you. There's a guy named Lee McGriff who's a former player, coach, played the NFL briefly. He's a broadcaster now, and he has been in love with Trask since he started out, and he couldn't understand why he wasn't playing because he just watched practice and you see this ball being a former wide receiver. It was like a delicious morsel hanging there for him. My word, he said, "What I would love to do." And on one of the first touchdown passes he threw last year, Lee was doing the game, and Lee he just went berserk. He says, "Oh my word, what I wouldn't give to catch a ball like that!" Right? blurted it out.
Yeah,
and he was excited, and Trask is again his resiliency is remarkable. Keep this in mind, guys. Aside from the fact that he came out of mothballs against Kentucky and stepped right in and did a great job, is that he was behind 14-0 against Georgia, brought him back, tied the game, then throws a pick six. He never throws a pick six. Now he's behind again. A lot of guys would have folded their tents right then. He didn't do it. He just fired back, kept firing, and did a great job in the first 44 points. Not quite as many as the head ball coach scored on Georgia. You can count that. But pretty good. And so I think that was a good day for the All Gators.
We're talking with Buddy Martin, author, talk show host, covering the Gators with us here on Ruscin and Zach. Buddy, what's been? We hear what everyone thinks around here all the time about Sam Pittman and Barry Odom and what's happened here. What's been your impressions as you've kind of watched from afar what Pittman has done turning around this Arkansas program?
Amazing. Coach of the year. It was an odd hire. I didn't know much about Sam Pittman. He said he coached at Georgia, offensive line coach, and I thought it was an unusual pick. But, the commonality between he and Mullen, I think, are when Mullen got here, Gator fans were so happy to have somebody who wanted to be here and got off the airplane chomping and was so thrilled to be here. Unlike McElwain and others before him were like, okay, well, I'll take the job, but I'm not really ever going to be a Gator. That's the attitude. And you take him and Pittman, I loved he said, this is my last job. You can bury me here. I'm committed. I love Arkansas. I love Arkansas's people. Obviously, you guys can tell me they love him in Arkansas, and that has translated into a remarkable performance of getting players to play for him. Isn't that the name of the game, guys? Getting players to play for you? And he reminded me of your favorite uncle, and I love how he talks. He speaks the truth, but he does it with kindness. He knows football, and I love how calm he is, a calm spirit. I think he is a heck of a coach.
I'm curious what you think this thing is going to look like. There's a 35% chance that it's going to rain. Florida is fifth nationally in passing offense, 370 yards a game. That's Spurrier-esque, but they don't run it very well. They're 95th nationally. Is Dan Mullen a coach? Now, Barry Odom has had a way of slowing down very high-profile passing offenses. Is Dan Mullen one of those guys that will just beat his head against the wall and keep throwing it, or can he, sort of change gears and run the ball?
Yeah, first of all, I forgot to mention Barry Odom. What a pickup that was. And this weekend, he's the head coach, and I think Barry Odom's defense has been really, really good. That's been as big a surprise as Sam Pittman has been. But let me just say this. It's a misnomer that Florida can't run the ball, okay? they can run the ball. All right. Now the stats may not reflect that, but if you go back to Saturday afternoon's game, Florida's first big drive, 46 yards of it was running the football right in the teeth of Georgia. Okay. The other thing is that Mullen's not a fool. If you can't go through something, go around it. Just like he did last year when he played a couple years ago against Mississippi State, was a big defensive lineman. He has a scheme. He'll figure out a way to attack it. And the way he attacked it on Saturday was the swing pass. You know, that was the weapon. Malik Davis had 100 yards receptions on the wheel route. 100 yards. The backs can catch the football. What difference does it make whether they run with it or catch it? If they're getting that kind of yards, it's almost 200 yards out of their backs in passing. That's a weapon. So Mullen has a way of scheming it up, and he schemed that up in the wheel route for the talk all week long around here. My gosh, it's not brand new, but boy, it worked great. So, yeah, I think Florida can run the ball. They got three pretty good backs, not great, but they catch the ball out of the backfield, and I think that Mullen knows he can get the ball to them either that way or by handing it off. So they can run the football. Don't get fooled by that. And their offensive line has improved dramatically.
5 games left on their schedule. They'll be favored in all 5 of them. They've certainly got the inside track to go to the SEC title game. If you're looking at the schedule, you just check them off. Florida should, if they're the true number 6 team in the country, they should roll through these next 5 games and get to the SEC title game where they'll probably be staring down Alabama.
Yeah, that's the talk. Of course, someone asked a while ago, is this a cakewalk? I said, no. There's never a cakewalk in Florida. There's always going to be something along the way. And, there's always that danger. I have Shane Matthews, the former Gator quarterback, and I do a show together once a week. And, in fact, he's on tonight's show. I was on his show this morning. He's of the mind Florida's going to blow Arkansas out. I said, I don't think so. I think, and Chris Doring told me, he said, don't be fooled. They've got players. He likes the receivers. He thinks Arkansas is going to come up really good receivers and thinks they got obviously a good running back. They know about Felipe. And so I think it's a dangerous time for Florida because the most dangerous time is after a big win. That bounce that you get there. And after winning against Georgia, Arkansas could be a dangerous team. I don't think it's going to be. What's the line, by the way?
17 and a half. 17 and a half.
18 is what I saw.
Yeah.
I would not lay 17 points. No way. I think this game will be closer than that, in my opinion, just because of the nature of college football, which I've been watching for 100 years. It's just you can't get up every weekend, and they got up big last weekend. So let's just say that I think that's an overrated line. I think Florida. I'm not concerned about really the rest of them. LSU is an unknown factor, obviously, but you think by now, if they can even get a squad together by the way things are going, but 3 games postponed, right? Mm-hmm. And LSU is one of them. So I think the pathway is there for Florida. It's their time. Have they peaked? I think they're capable of playing a little bit better. Look, a hot-handed quarterback is the best thing to have in college football, and they've got one. Trash has done an amazing job. And they got weapons. They do have weapons, and they can run the football. Now, can they be burned deep? Yeah, they can be. Can they have problems stopping teams on 3rd down? Yes, they can be. The things that happen. But this team is good, has a chance to be a lot better, and the pathway is there. People say, well, what about Alabama? Let's see what Alabama's got when they get there, if they get there. Because there are all kinds of problems out there. Look at Georgia. Whoever thought they'd be without a quarterback? They had too many. Now they don't have any.
Yeah. Buddy Martin, the Buddy Martin Show, New York Times best-selling author, with us here on Ruscin and Zach. Buddy, we really appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Guys, I really appreciate you having me on. I hope we get together again soon.
All right, thank you so much. Buddy Martin with us here on Ruscin and Zach. There you go. He's literally written the book and a few of them on Florida Gator football.
There's no greater source on Florida football
than Spurrier. Yeah. All right.
Knows them all.
One day we'll book him and we'll just get Spurrier stories for 20 minutes because he's got them all. He's got them all. He wrote the book, literally.
And we'll be on his show.
All right.
Saturday morning.
Fantastic. All right. We will have more for you in mere moments here on Ruscin and Zach. SEC reports on the way. The very latest on Sam Pittman and what's going on with Corona and all that stuff. On the way next. Don't go anywhere.